G'day, mate. That was my attempt at an Australian accent. So yeah, my ugly mug again. Yeah, things aren't great at the moment. I have relapsed. Obviously, I think I said in one of my last videos regarding my self-harm, and it's not something that is enjoyable. It's not something that I enjoy admitting that I have done. But like I've always been upfront. I've always been honest, and I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna change now. I want to focus this video purely on obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I suffer from OCD, and quite a lot of people have it in their head it's just about cleanliness, having to wash your hands, having things in symmetry, all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm setting the record straight. It honestly isn't. Some people's experience of it might be that, some people's isn't. Now, OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. The O is when you get an obsession. The compulsion is when you have to carry out a compulsion because you feel like something bad is going to happen. And then the D obviously stands for disorder. Now, people can suffer from it on various different spectrums. Now, someone could be more. Imagine it as a percentage. Somebody could be 50-50, so they might get the obsessive thoughts, which distress them, and then 50% of their OCD might be the compulsion, the repeated behaviour, because they feel like something bad's going to happen to get rid of that thought. You might get somebody who is more, say, 70% compulsion, 30% obsession. Now, I think I'm somewhere between 65 and 75 obsession, and then the rest compulsion. Now, the obsession can be anything. It can be a thought that is distressing to that individual. It could be, and this is me personally, I'm going to get onto me personally in a minute, but examples are getting life-threatening illnesses, worrying that a loved one has been in a car accident, worried that you've run over someone, a cyclist as you pass them, in the car, worrying that you've caused a car crash and not known about it. And then because you have this obsession, this obsessive thought going round and round and round and round, it causes extreme anxiety. So you complete a set of compulsions. Me personally, I suffer from a lot of intrusive thoughts. Now, intrusive thoughts is basically, how can I explain this? It is a thought, not an urge. So it's a thought which is everything that is not your character. But it's almost like a form of Tourette's, where it's like it's in your head. It gets planted in your head when you don't want it there. But instead of being able to just, there's a statistic: 4 in 5 people experience intrusive thoughts, and you might be there thinking you don't, but on a subconscious level you do. But only, here's an interesting statistic for you: only 1 in 50 react in the way that I do. Now, the intrusive thoughts can be of so many different natures, and I would basically say to you, Google intrusive thought. Each intrusive thoughts and what types of intrusive thoughts every individual suffers is completely unique to them. The reason why mine personally distress me is because they're all against my character. They're all the complete opposite to what I am. And that's why it's quite important to identify the difference between a thought and an urge. An urge is something which you get stimulated by and you want to do, but you don't do because you know it's morally wrong. A thought is a thought that's planted in your head that you don't want there, but it keeps going round and round and round and round and round. And that's the difference. And I'm sat here and I'm explaining the logic behind it. But even though I know this logic, I still can't stop that obsession going round and round and round and round and round. Now, for some reason recently my compulsions have got worse. I don't know why. Everyone's compulsions, again, are unique to their personality. Some might be tapping something a certain amount of times, raising one eyebrow X amount of times, doing certain things in certain amount of sets, all sorts of different things. But for me, some days I'm able to break these molds and not do it. Other days I can't. Now, I can't quite pinpoint why some days I've got it in me to not give in to the compulsion. And I'm just going to pause the video for 1 minute because I can hear something going on outside. Okay, I'm back again. Sorry about that. I could just hear something kicking off outside of the door. And if I have to pause it again, I'll explain why I'm pausing it and pause it. Lost my train of thought now. Back to what I was saying. An obsession and a compulsion on the spectrum for each individual will differ, and some people can suffer pure obsession and some people can suffer more of a pure compulsion type. I used to suffer from more of a pure obsessional type of OCD, but for some reason now it's kind of going into more of a, if I was to give it what I would think, I'd give it probably a 70 to 30. That's what I'd say. there's certain parts of songs that I have to listen to over and over again. Um, Sometimes by looking at pictures of people that I know. Sometimes I have to repeat this 100 times. Sometimes I have to listen to certain songs and look at certain celebrities because a song might have come on whilst they were on the TV, and by doing that, zoning out and doing that compulsion takes me away from the obsessive thought going on in my head. Or worst case scenario, the obsessions can make me self-harm, and further to that, make me try and take my own life. Sometimes I've got to do things in sets of 5, so 3 sets of 5. I've got to do touch wood, ... It's got to be done in a certain manner. I've got to do certain manner things with the sink, about how many times I turn it. We've all got these traits in us. It's just about how we manage them. And some of the intrusive thoughts I experience are really that against me as a person. They can be horrific to deal with, hence why they caused and still do to this day cause me so much anxiety. I can't even begin to explain to you the amount of anxiety that it causes me. It really does. It's gut wrenching. It really is. My stomach can be knots. Can be vomiting on all sorts. When I was younger, I used to have to check the rabbit's hutch over and over again, and get my sister to do it whilst I watched her check it. It was through my mum on the way to school saying, "No, I've not locked the rabbit's run door properly," even when I knew that I had. And even if she said she gone out and checked it, it still wasn't enough reassurance. That's a problem with OCD. There's never enough. There's never enough reassurance there, and I think what I'm trying to do, and I think I'm doing relatively well, is I am learning to live with that. I'm learning to, how can I articulate this? I'm learning to live with uncertainty, even though I know the certainty, if that makes sense. So almost like when an intrusive thought comes, I try and just say error. Like a computer would just say error, error, error. Some days it's easier than other days. It's just the luck of the draw. From what I've read up on intrusive thoughts, the people that are least likely to ever do anything are the people experiencing the intrusive thoughts. That's why it bothers them so much. We're the last people that are going to do it. So that's my experience of OCD. I'm quite, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm always the one who will always step in when a bully's being bullied. I'm always the one who hates any kind of. I'm not a violent person, so intrusive thoughts can be violent in their nature. They can come in all shapes and forms, and if you have if you're experiencing thoughts and they're distressing you, mate, just try googling it, because you might be there thinking you're a horrible person because you've got this thought in your head, but actually it's not your fault. It's like it's a brain thing. It's your what's the word I'm looking for? Like I say, it's almost like Tourette's. I've with my facial tics, I've been told I'm borderline Tourette's. Um, but there's a massive difference between you having intrusive thought and you having a genuine urge to commit a horrendous crime, and then um, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. If the thought doesn't stimulate you, just label it intrusive, because there's massive difference between that and thinking I really would get off on this, but I know it's morally wrong, so I can't do it. And that line can be blurred, and this is why I feel like I'm going around in circles here. But I'm doing it. I'm doing it in quite a conscious way to try and get that message across to you, that to check these thoughts out online, because you might be experiencing certain things and feeling like a horrible person for it, and you could have a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. You really might, and the same goes for the compulsion side. And not every single thought is going to be the same for every single person. And I'm sure as my YouTube channel keeps going and going and going and keeps growing, I'm sure that I'll have a specific intrusive thought one day, and it'll be a perfect time to do a video about that thought, because you never know when they're gonna strike, and they can be that horrendous, and they can distress people like me that much. You're 1 in 50, you're least likely ever to act on anything that bad that we want to take our own lives. It really can get to that point, and I don't say that lightly. So, if you feel you might be suffering with OCD, please seek help. Remember, it's the illness that's planting that thought in your head. It's not something you're willingly putting in there. And just try to get that cognitive training going on. I'm still learning. I might be sat here like I've got it all together, and later I might have a horrible intrusive thought. Excuse me, I ain't sleeping all last night. I'm not in a good place at the moment. Yeah, and I could get horrible intrusive thought. And then it's just like, yeah, what I spoke on that video, I was level-headed and I gave them all advice, and I just haven't taken my own advice. But sometimes it's hard to take your own advice. I know the logic behind it all. I've got great insight into OCD, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can always follow my own advice, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Look, I hope I've been of some help, and I hope I've perhaps shed some light on OCD for yourselves to make you realise that you're not a bad person and you're just suffering a horrible illness. And to any loved ones, friends, anyone, as well as a sufferer, my inbox is always open. I always say that, and I always mean it. And my inbox is always open. If you feel like you're suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder, I cannot diagnose you. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can point you in the right direction and I could give you my opinion, but I can't diagnose. So just bear that in mind. But still you can still always contact me. Just please, just always remember that. And I hope I've helped at least one person that might be going through this terrible illness. Bye bye for now.